What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to continue our coverage over X-Men comics as we work our way up to Days of Future Present, the next crossover that we are going to talk about. But now we have to jump into Wolverine once again, and we're going to cover Wolverine number 21, 22, and 23, a three-part story arc where it does pick up right after Acts of Vengeance for Wolverine. Now remember, in our last video, you had Wolverine invade a country better known as Terra Verda to save a close friend of his, and that would be Roughhouse. Now at the end of our last video, he was able to save Roughhouse, and we were left to believe that Wolverine and his crew were able to leave freely and go back home, but apparently that did not happen. And so as we are diving into today's video, we come to find out that apparently the helicopter that Wolverine and the other used had apparently crashed in the jungle of Terra Verda. Now the helicopter was found by a character known as Geist. Now Geist was the main bad guy in our last two videos for Wolverine. When it comes to Geist, he was actually hired by the president of Terra Verda. You see, the president wanted his own superhuman. He got tired of the idea of seeing other countries around the world being able to have their own superheroes. He wanted his own, and so he hired, of course, Geist. Now when it came to Geist, he decided to use a special kind of cocaine that should be able to give someone abilities. Now when it came to Geist, he had kidnapped Roughhouse, who was an enemy of Wolverine, but by the time you had Geist kidnap Roughhouse, Wolverine and Roughhouse became somewhat friends. Either way, he kidnapped Roughhouse to use him as a test subject, hoping that he could perfect his new cocaine drug so that Terra Verda can then have their own super soldiers. Now when it comes to Geist, when he finds the helicopter, well, everyone on there is currently missing, and we're left to wonder, where in the world are they? And so we kind of find out that Wolverine, Roughhouse, and also Sister Salvation were able to get away from the helicopter crash. Now here's the thing, there was another character with them, but I'm going to save her for later on in this video. Now when it comes to Wolverine, he's currently being contained by Roughhouse because we kind of find out at the end of our last video, he was hit with some kind of needles that had doses of cocaine inside of them. Geist cocaine, and so currently his healing factor is trying its best to fight against cocaine in his bloodstream. Now when it comes to Roughhouse, he is able to hold down Wolverine, but you have Roughhouse asking Sister Salvation to help out. Now when it comes to Sister Salvation, she is a mutant. She has the ability to heal people by just touching them, but here's the thing, she's also the wife to President Felix. Now she had left him a long time ago because he was so corrupt, but of course she was forced to come back because he needed her help with the whole cocaine experiment. But he told her, if you help out, I will allow you to see our son once again. And so she did. Now when it comes to Sister Salvation, she is able to use her abilities to calm down Wolverine for just a moment, but that cocaine is still inside his body. His healing factor is working overtime to hopefully get rid of it. And so she tells Wolverine and Roughhouse that sooner or later he's gonna have another Berserk episode very soon. And she is actually right, because after a while, you do have our heroes still trying their best to hide from Geist and his soldiers, but Wolverine has another episode where he goes berserk, and you have Roughhouse once again having to try to contain Wolverine. Now, when it comes to Wolverine, he begins to hallucinate to the point where he believes that he's back in World War II, and he's currently fighting against the Nazis. Now, we do get a few pages of him just being a savage animal, but it really shows the cocaine is doing a number to his mind and body, and his healing factor is seriously struggling to get rid of the cocaine in his body. Now, in the middle of this hallucination, he's then confronted by Sister Salvation, who's once again trying her best to use her abilities to calm down Wolverine. But at the same time, she's also trying to inform him that she has to let him know that he has to fight. He has to keep fighting. Do not let in to the cocaine, because if you do, you are going to lose. It will take over your body completely and possibly kill you. Now, in the middle of this hallucination, you didn't have Wolverine kiss Sister Salvation in this hallucination. Now, it actually does happen in the real world as well, except only Wolverine and Sister Salvation know about it. Roughhouse had apparently passed out, and so when he wakes up, he sees that Wolverine is back on the ground again, but at the same time, he sees Sister Salvation kind of dazed. And we know why she's dazed. She was just kissed by a man she only knew for about a few hours, and that is it. Either way, you have Roughhouse continue to hold on to Wolverine as they try to find a safe place to hide. But getting back over to Wolverine's hallucination, it continues on to the point where he believes that he sees Geist currently giving Hitler a shave. And so you have Wolverine just barge into the actual building to hopefully kill off Hitler, but to also kill off Geist as well. Now again, this is an hallucination, and so for Wolverine, everything he is seeing is not real, but he has no idea. And so when he goes after Geist and also Hitler, they disappear, but then some other kind of creature appears, and this creature is better known as Spore. And Spore has technically been one of the main bad guys who has been hiding behind the scenes. And what I mean by that is Spore was actually created by the Deviants to use against the Eternals. So let me explain. When it comes to the Deviants, they're always at war against the Eternals for many, many years, but they're always losing the war. And so what they did was they created a being who would give them the ability to take down the Eternals, and that would be Spore. Now, when it comes to Spore, he had the ability to absorb almost anything in its path. But here's the problem. You see, you had a Celestial stepped in because the Eternals were just losing non-stop. And the Celestials believed that they had killed off Spore, but they did not. You see, what happened was Spore was able to stay alive because he was broken down into smaller particles and he was laced across the soil in Terra Verda, the same soil that is used to help Geist and Felix grow their cocaine. And so when it comes to Geist being able to give different people his special cocaine, and the reason why they're gaining abilities is because of Spore. Now, I'm not done yet, because Spore says he has been looking for the perfect host to use as a way to regrow to his original state. And so that is why we had so many different people be injected with the cocaine but not being able to survive, because Spore has been trying to use those people to regrow back to his original state, but unfortunately they end up dying. And so now he believes that Wolverine is the perfect host to use as a way to come back to his original state. And so now it's up to Wolverine to find a way to kick Spore out of his body. Now, Wolverine does remember what Sister Salvation had told him, that the only way to break out of this, to get out of this state you're in right now, is to keep fighting, which he also means kick your healing factor to overdrive, because your healing factor is the only way that you are going to survive. And so with his healing factor, but also him being able to fight back, he was able to push Spore right out of his body. Now, once he wakes up, he does see that Sister Salvation was working so hard to make sure that Wolverine survives. Also Roughhouse as well. But things get even worse, because when it comes to Wolverine, he believes that maybe him and also Sister Salvation could possibly build a bond with one another. Except we come to find out that when our heroes were trying to get away from Geist and also the army of Terra Verda, Sister Salvation was leaving clues behind to hopefully be found by them. Because again, the only reason why she helped out President Felix Felix was to be able to see her son. And so for her, she's kind of like, yeah, I had to betray you. Yes, I saved your life, but I want to see my son. And so I left clues behind to help them find us so I can see my son. And so as we dive into the next chapter, we do pick up with Wolverine and Roughhouse now being prisoners for Terra Verde once again. Now, when it comes to Geist and also the president, they want to continue the experiment. They want to continue the idea of creating a super soldier that will be working for Terra Verde. Now, as soon as you have the president leave Wolverine and also Roughhouse behind, he's then confronted by Sister Salvation, who is demanding to see her son. And he says, fine, you want to see your son? Follow me. And we kind of find out that their son is a soldier for the army of Terra Verde, and his name is Paulo. Now, when it comes to the president, he has some big plans for Paulo very soon. But he does tell the sister, you are allowed to be with your son for the afternoon. But by nighttime, you and I and him are going to sit down to talk further about how everything is going to work out between us and this family. But getting back over to Wolverine and Roughhouse, we kind of find out that they are currently being held inside a prison. Now, inside that prison, they're also bound by chains. But when it comes to Wolverine, he does inform us that Roughhouse has the ability to break out of those chains, but he's not doing it. And this is where we learn a tad bit about the origin of Roughhouse. We kind of find out that when he was a young boy, he was abused a lot by his father, and he was full of rage. And that rage was the reason why he was able to fight in so many different battles, that he was able to fight on even though he was pushed into a certain kind of corner. And so when it came to Sister Salvation, when she used her abilities to help him fight the cocaine inside his body, she also got rid of the rage that he was holding towards his father. Without that rage, he feels like he is unable to break out of the chains. But you have Wolverine trying his best to keep Roughhouse going by saying, dude, no, you have to keep trying, because if you don't, you are going to die. I am going to die. We're all going to die. And that is the moment you have Wolverine inform Roughhouse about Spore. And Spore still has a possibility of coming back. And if he does, once he finds the perfect host, it's game over for a lot of people. But now I want to jump back over to Sister Salvation, and here is the reason why. So she's trying to have a bonding moment with her son, which it does work out, except while having that bonding moment, the both of them are called into a room by President Felix. Now, when it comes to Felix, he begins to inform his ex-wife that he plans to use his son as the next test subject for the cocaine drug to hopefully make him into a super soldier. Now, while you have the two of them arguing with one another, you didn't have Roughhouse and Wolverine being able to break free. Really, for Roughhouse, he was able to regain the rage that would allow him to be strong enough to break out of his binds because he heard the screams of Sister Salvation. Now, after hearing her screams and breaking free and also Wolverine's free, you have the two of them head straight over to where Sister Salvation is at to figure out why in the world she was screaming for. And so when we jump back over to them, we kind of find out the reason why the president had allowed her to come back, but also allowed her to see her son, their son, because he wants to use her mutant ability. He knows that if his son goes through the actual experiment, he'll be going through a lot of pain, which most likely could possibly kill him. And so he wants to use his ex-wife ability to help heal their son as he goes through the process, to hopefully complete the entire process that will give this country their first super soldier. But she's very upset about the idea of her son going through this experiment. Now, luckily, Wolverine was able to arrive just in time to save Paulo. He was able to jump in front of the shots and use his claws to block most of them. Now, the rest of the needles that were fired out of Guy's hands did miss Wolverine and also miss Paulo, but they hit Felix. And so you have Wolverine say, hey, Mr. President, if you want to stay alive, I was you, I would start begging your wife here to actually help you out, because the entire process that you are about to go through is not going to be very nice. But you didn't have the sister say, no, I will not help you at all, because how corrupt you are and how bad this country has become because of you. But then out of nowhere, you have our heroes hear explosions from the outside of the base. And we come to find out the military base is being under attack by a character known as La Bandera. Now, when it comes to La Bandera, we had talked about her in our last video, but something else I do want to mention is that she was with our heroes on the helicopter before it had crashed. She was the character I said I will talk about later. You see, when it comes to La Bandera, the only reason why she's here in Terra Verde is to liberate the country, to free the country from President Felix's control, because her father had died from being a drug addict. All the drugs her father took came from this country right here, from Felix. And so her main goal is to free this country. Now, she also has the ability to inspire other people, to have them fight alongside with her to hopefully free this country. Now, I want to jump back over to Felix, because you have Felix right now just processing the idea that he was just injected with the same cocaine that him and Geist were using as a way to create their own super soldier on other people. And so you have Felix saying, you know what? I still want to give my country something special. This is a man who is so devoted to give his country their first super soldier. He goes out of his way to inject more of the cocaine into himself, and he believes that he'll become a super soldier, but he doesn't. He turns into Spore, because remember, when it came to the cocaine that Geist was growing in this one area in Terra Verde, the soil was laced with Spore, and so Spore was the reason why all those different people were able to gain powers. But it was also Spore trying his best to find a host to use so that he'll be able to regain his original state. Now, Wolverine was the best option, but Wolverine's healing factor kicked him out. And so now when you have Felix just continuing to inject more and more of that cocaine, he now became a perfect host for Spore. And Spore, bam, just like that, it's back to his original state. And like we saw earlier, when it comes to Spore, he is able to absorb almost anything in his path. The only reason why he was stopped last time was because of the Celestials. And so now you have Wolverine, Roughhouse, Bandera having to work together to hopefully find a way to actually stop him without the help of the Celestials or the Eternals. And so as we dive into the final chapter for today's video, we do pick up with our heroes trying their best to fight against Spore. But here's the problem though. Spore is able to regenerate after taking almost any kind of damage from our heroes. And so after a few pages, it does look like our heroes might not win, until you have Sister Salvation step in. Now, once she steps in, she's able to use her ability to heal to get rid of Spore, because technically Spore is an infection. An infection is a disease that has to be cured. And when it comes to her ability to cure almost any kind of medical issues, she was able to get rid of Spore. Her healing touch killed him off that easily. The day is saved. And so the following day, we do see our heroes beginning the process of trying to repair the damage that was done in this country by President Felix. And we get the idea that Roughhouse is going to stay here alongside with Sister Salvation to help guide the country in a better direction, also working alongside with La Bandera as well. Now, when it comes to Wolverine, there's still one person left he wants to get his hands on. And of course, he is talking about Geist. Now, when it comes to Geist, he believed that he would be able to sneak away when no one was noticing, when everyone was trying to see what are they going to do with Terra Verde. Instead, you have Wolverine saying, nah, man, I have been thinking about you this entire time. Felix is gone, which means you also have to pay for his crimes, including your crimes. They're being combined together into one. Now, once you have Wolverine being able to find Geist, you then have Wolverine use his claws to do some severe damage to the cyborg body of Geist, and then hand him over to Bandera. Now, right after you have Wolverine hand over Geist to the new government of Terra Verde, the following day he comes to find out that Geist was actually let go. And here's the reason why. Geist was actually working for the CIA. The CIA was trying their best to get rid of President Felix, and they were using Geist as their informant to gather any kind of information that would help them to get rid of Felix. Now, here's the problem. Wolverine is very upset about the idea the CIA worked with an ex-Nazi to allow him to basically get a free pass after all the crimes that he had committed. But either way, Geist is now a free man. Or is he? You see, you have Geist being able to get back over to Washington, D.C., except when he arrives at the safe house that he believes is actually safe, he's then confronted by Magneto. Now, when it comes to Magneto, we have to remember that he lived through the Holocaust, and we kind of find out that at one of the camps that Magneto was at, so was Geist. Geist was working at the camp that had apparently killed off the wife of Magneto. And so this is Magneto saying that him and Geist are going to have a very interesting conversation. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.